Okay, so now the moment you've been waiting for, the big comparison between the Moz7 V2 from Geprc and the iFlight CineLR 7 here on my right. There are some major differences that we're going to go into in this video. I'm going to explain it very simply to you. And by the end of this video, if you're still watching by the end, you're probably interested to buy one of these, one or the other. And with the information that you watch during this video and you learn, by the end of the video, you would definitely get an idea of what you decide you want that's going to work for you. Because again, they are both very different designs and they both have similar flight characteristics, but there's going to be a lot of conveniences and inconveniences that we need to talk about for both of these in this video, in this comparison. So I think we should just get right to it, and we'll jump into the first few comparisons. And as far as the body, the frame, the design, the components on board, the tune, and the way they fly out in the field. So let's go ahead and jump right into this. Okay, so first comparison, we're going to talk about the flight characteristics, we're going to talk about the tune, the power system, and everything on both of these quads that make them fly the way they do. Now, the 04 system on there, it performs great in low light level situations. It also performs great in sunny conditions. And both of these companies make ND filters and UV filters for these cameras. So if you buy either one of these, I suggest you buy some ND filters. Get yourself some type of cover, lens cover, so you can keep all the scratches off your 04. That's going to be super important. Now, as far as the tune goes, both of them have great factory tunes on them, and I don't see a lot of vibrations in the quads. Sort of harder maneuvers. When you do high throttle pitch changes, you'll see some shudder in your FPV goggles, but if you're using something like the flight stabilization Rocksteady 2.0 software on there, it'll smooth all of that out for you in your 4K video. So your 4K video that you end up bringing home looks great. There's nice motion blur on both of these quads down low to the ground, and they both track really well, being a 7-inch drone. Now, one of the things that I have to tell you, the difference between the two, the CineLR 7 on the left feels more floaty and sort of a little less powered, more like an RC glider, so to speak. It feels very big in the air. It does feel like it's a much larger drone than something like a 5-inch freestyle quad. Now, the Geprc Moz7, on the other hand, even though I'm flying like a Lion pack on here, it does have a more powered feel to it, and it feels like it flies a little bit faster on the same type of camera tilt. So it does feel a little more aggressive. So at the end of the day, they both feel good in the air, but the Moz7 V2 does have kind of a more hot rod feel to it versus the LR7. All right, guys, welcome back from the flight test of both of these quads. Now, let's just jump right into it. First off, the range on both of these. The approximate range for both of these is 15 kilometers. They both get in the 25 to 30 minute flight time frame. You can use something up to like a 6S 8000 Lion pack on the Moz7 V2 and the CineLR 7, and you can push it just a little bit further down to about 3 volt and probably end up with about 30 minutes worth of flight time. And the wheelbase on the Moz7 V2 is 336 millimeters from motor to motor. And the wheelbase on the LR7 over on the left-hand side is 333 millimeters from motor to motor. And Geprc used the SpeedX branded motors. These are the X2s on there. They're 2809, and these are 1450 kV, which is a little higher kV than the Zing Series 2 motors that iFlight used. And these are 2809, 1250 kV, so a little bit more efficient and a less high amp draw. But the V2 Moz7 is known for pretty good power out there, but they still get about the same flight time. iFlight's CineLR 7 is 786.1 grams on the scale without a battery, and Geprc's Moz7 V2 comes in at 825.9 grams on the scale without a battery, coming in a little bit heavier than the CineLR 7. And one of the most important things on both of these long-range drones is the GPS that they chose to put on their drones. Now, what's interesting about the iFlight CineLR 7 here on the right is that you don't see any GPS back here at all. they actually hid the GPS underneath the TPU part right here. So when you're at an angle, you do get a clear view of the sky back here, and it is positioned just back here underneath this antenna. Very interesting choice for the protection of this. So it gives it a little more protection for flying and crashes. So that's kind of nice that iFlight did that. But even on their website, they don't even tell us what version of the GPS it is. It just says high precision GPS model. And for a very important part of the drone, such as a long range drone, you would expect to get a lot more information out of a company for which one it is. We're going to pop the top and I'm going to show you that in a little bit here in this video. But moving on to the Geprc version, Geprc chose to do a dual band M1025 GPS. So what this is it's a brand new GPS that they developed specifically from Geprc. And what it does is it gives you an upwards of 30 satellites on there. It has a super quick connect almost within 15 seconds. This is a very precise and fast connection to the home point GPS. Very, very reliable GPS, and it still has a nice TPU bumper around the whole thing, supporting it in the very back end of the Moz7 V2. So I kind of prefer the quick connect dual band GPS on the back of the Moz7 V2. Now, also in the back of both of these quads, we have dual 04 antenna ports coming off the back, but on the Moz7 V2 over here, you notice there is a third one right in the center. And this is a singular long-range antenna option for people that are running ELRS. If you're not running ELRS, if you're running TBS Crossfire, you can just cap this one off because you're not going to use it. But it is very nice that they give you that option. And the cable is already ran from the front of the quad where the receiver bay is. And the dual antennas that they chose to put on the back of both of these quads are pretty comparable. The iFlight antenna is just a little bit longer. They are both left-hand circular polarized antennas, so if you're buying kind of new ones for these quads, you want to make sure that they're LHCP antennas. The Geprc ones are slightly shorter, but honestly, I didn't find any performance difference in between these two antennas. They're pretty much virtually the same. Now, what is very different on these designs is the front end where the 04 camera is mounted up here. We do have the dual bolt on the side of each camera. We both have aluminum like side plates on here for the camera mount. We also have rubber grommets on both of these bolt patterns, and that's nice for dampening. Geprc also chose to put their TBS Immortal T antenna in the front, which is where I prefer it to be on a long range drone, because when you're turning around and coming back, you don't have any interruption from the frame being in the way. Sometimes if this is on the back, it will interrupt the signal path back to your radio. So that's important that it's on the front instead of the back like iFlight has it here. However, iFlight has a dual antenna option, which gives us that clear signal path back. So you don't have to worry about that. But where we have a lot of differences in these two quads is the front end specifically, because Moz7 V2 has this sort of aluminum top plate right here, giving you extra camera coverage on the top end of this quad. So if you take a really direct hard hit, you're going to have a lot more camera protection on the Moz7 V2 versus the CineLR 7. I feel like iFlight kind of left the whole entire top and the bottom of this camera exposed and open to the elements when you go in for a crash. There's not a lot of top and bottom protection here, whereas the Moz7 V2, we do have that top plate here, and we have more TPU protection on the bottom as well, and the Immortal T is a little bit in the way covering that. Now, that's not great protection, but it is far more protection than you have with it totally exposed on the bottom like this. iFlight does have these little bumpers down here on the bottom rail. They do extend this metal plate back under the frame right here, and they have their GoPro mount kind of neatly sticking out the top of the frame here, and the Moz7 over here just has its own particular GoPro mount. Now, there are also some other major differences between the way the two top plates come off this quad for access to the flight controller. And this is where the key differences are in the frame design of both these quads. Now, the Moz7, for me, I'm a builder, and I prefer the top plate setup on the Moz7 V2 over the CineLR 7, mainly because we have 10 bolts top plate release. To be able to get to anything underneath this top plate, you have to remove 8 M3 bolts and then 2 M2 bolts in the very back where the XT60 connects. On the Moz 7, it has a 2-plate separation here, and this is more of a modern trend where you have the front plate here and the back plate is separated from the front part of the quad, whereas on the CineLR 7 just goes all the way to the front. So you get those extra 4 bolts up front, and separating those two here on this side only makes a 6-bolt top plate release, which really helps out in getting inside your quad should you need to work on it or rebind up your receiver. Now I have to note that the CineLR 7 only was 8 bolts to take off the top plate. You didn't have to remove these 2, but to remove this completely from the quad, you will have to pull off these extra 2 to release the XT60 here to get the plate away from the entire stack. You may not need to do that, but there are only 6 bolts top plate release here on the Moz 7 V2, and once I pull that off, it's free and clear of anything inside the quad, which makes it kind of nice for access. And now we're taking a look inside the Moz 7 V2. You can see that the Taker H743 BT is inside there, and it's the BT version because you can connect this flight controller to SpeedyB app with Bluetooth on your phone and make changes to it in Betaflight, which is pretty cool. Now, just below that, we have 50 amp 4-in-1 ESCs on there, and just behind that we have a vertically mounted capacitor with some TPU mount right there to keep it in place. And we have the 04 back here with a bit of a heatsink underneath it. It's a metal plate. You'll see a heatsink just below it on the frame, which is a nice custom addition to this. Because flying in the summer months, it's going to need a little more heatsink action on this VTX than what it has built into it. So these do get pretty hot during the summer months. And back here, in the very back, we have the main wires coming out to the XT60 back here. And we also have an anti-static board right here. So when you plug in that 6S battery, you're not going to hear as much pop when you plug it in. And that will protect the rest of the electronics inside this frame. And if we look underneath the GoPro mount right here, we have a receiver tray up in the front of the quad. So this is where your receiver lives and is well protected by these side plates. And these side plates have access panels on both sides. They do have an M2 bolt right here that will release and let you get to your USB port, sort of a silicone type of release here for the flight controller to get to your H7 flight controller, and that just kind of snaps back into place. But I do like that the side panels on this one are not pop-off side panels, specifically because that's going to be a little more safe for flying. And I think overall, it's a much cleaner design inside the Moz 7 V2 with less crowded wires and things going everywhere. It just seems to be more thought out and well planned. Now to remove the top plate again, I had to remove the extra 2 screws. So technically we are at 10 bolts for the top plate release on this LR7. Now this is a different layout. If you're looking at this right away, you can notice that everything is a little bit messier in here. There are wires going everywhere. There's not as much organization as far as cable organization goes in here. We also have a really nice anti-static board in here as well on this one, which reduces a lot of the pop on the XT60 when you plug in the 6S battery. We also have the Blitz F7 flight controller up front with 55 amp ESCs underneath. We have a capacitor just kind of floating here. There's no real TPU home for it, which would kind of be nice to separate it from some of the wires here. Just a little bit of a safety thing. We also have the antennas running from the VTX up front. So we have extended antenna wires running to the dual antenna setup on the back here, all the way across over top of all the electronics. I don't know if that's good as far as long range transmission or not. I would prefer that these be shorter and the VTX be in the back. Typically, because if you're going to have a hard crash, a lot of this stuff's going to get pushed back a little bit and it's going to hit this VTX, which is riding in the very front of the quad. So this is different than the Moz 7 setup where you had the VTX in the back, a little more contained inside inside the quad's frame. So this is a little more exposed than the internal structure of the Moz 7 V2. And this may be a convenience thing for some people, may like that the side panels are pop-off. I had an issue with mine where, even though they remove easily, getting them back on and making sure that it was properly seated was giving me anxiety, because this back part right here only really has one side on there, which connects to the back of the quad right here. So if this pops out while you're flying, this is what I fear. If it pops out, it could result in some type of blade strike right back here, because this prop goes pretty close to it. So if this is not seated properly, this back panel feels fairly flimsy, and it should connect a little bit better, maybe around that back standoff instead of just a half of this connecting to it, which makes me a little bit nervous for long range flights. Now, if we look at the internals of both of these designs, you can see that the Moz7 is quite a bit beastier in here. It does have those side panels that are not coming off. They're not going to snap off mid-flight. They also put in these reinforced struts on the outside of the frame, which I've never really seen before in a long-range quad design. The iFlight version, you know, it is a lighter frame, which, if that's what you're going for, a little bit lighter. This, it kind of has a more tapered back end on it, reducing some of the carbon. But then again, like, there's that back panel kind of popping off the back. Well, I didn't pull that one off. It just kind of popped off while I was sitting here. So again, like, those easy removable side plates just make me a little bit nervous for long range flights. But this one is definitely a lighter design. And one of the other things that is just a small thing, this one, the Moz7 V2, does have these kind of countersunk bolts, and they are countersunk into the frame of the quad, which I prefer for heavier batteries, because what it does is it keeps the head of the bolt flat. If the battery somehow starts to rub on the bolt, in years past when we use panhead style bolts like this one right here, this is the iFlight bolt, the batteries can rub on the top and eventually start to have wear issues on the battery, and that can cause a fire. So you have to be really careful about your batteries rubbing on the top of the bolts while you're flying. One of the things that people sometimes miss when they mount a battery to the top of the quad, and for long range, you want to make sure that you absolutely have 100% padding between your hardware and your battery that's riding on top. And let's give some points to the LR7, because I do love the flat mount XT60 port on the back of this quad. It doesn't have me have to extend my battery cable further in the back. I've talked about this sort of angled XT60 trend that we have going on back here, and Geprc has less of an angle on this one versus the original, like a Crocodile 2, which had about a 35-degree angle backwards, which really made me scooch my battery way back to get my short cable in. And they've sort of reduced that on this one, but I would have preferred if they would have done that as a flat mount on the back of this TPU here, instead of even just angling it. Like, it looks like it's about 10% now, but I would prefer a 0-degree flat mount on the back of my quad. So, I mean, at the end of the day, there are some major differences between the two. And, you know, what we have with the LR7 is a lighter, just a little bit lighter frame design, a little less robust type of setup than the Moz7 V2. The Moz7 is kind of known for being like maybe like the race car of long-range drones, with a little more power, a little more industrial style motors built into this, and putting in these crossbars on the bottom of the frame, the extra heat sink down here, the dual band GPS in the back there, and the super robust front end on here, I really think sets it majorly apart from its counter over here, the LR7, mainly because of the robustness. And for me, first off, you want something that's reliable, but secondly, you want something that's going to take a crash as well as it can. You can just hope for the best if this thing goes in with a 6S 8000 pack on there. It's a huge battery, so you know, you're really going to have a lot of weight when you go in. When you crash with sevens, a lot of times it's just a fact, you're probably going to break an arm, and that's why all of these have those sort of replaceable arms on the very bottom. Now, how fast you can get those on and off really depends on like the amount of bolts that you have to release from the bottom plate here. And as you can see, the Moz7 has quite a few bolts more than the LR7 over here, so less bolts on the bottom plate for arm replacement. So the CineLR 7 really does have it there as far as arm replacement goes, but you also have built-in LEDs on the bottom of these arms. So you're going to have to make sure that all that is properly wired up on the inside when you do replace an arm, because those are built into the quad. And right here, I do see one's kind of actually coming up on this arm just a little bit. So I might take a little bit of maybe some CA and make that properly seated there. Now, one other thing that they have on the bottom of both these quads is all the TPU accessories. And we talked about this before in my review. The Moz7 over here, V2 on the left, it has a half mount TPU footbed on the very bottom, whereas the LR7 has a full coverage on the bottom of the motor. So it gives you a little more motor and arm protection there, but adding also a little bit more weight. But the Moz7 V2 decided to shave off some of that weight by doing a half mount. You can see 2 bolts in the front hold that on, and it has a little bit taller foot, give you a little more clearance, and it stands just a little taller off the ground than the LR7. So now at this point in the video, hopefully you've learned a whole bunch about both of these different frames, the components, the setup, the power system, the flight controller, and the overall design of each different frame, because you might not have seen before on YouTube a great close-up comparison and even some of my personal opinion on this, because I've been flying long range for a long time, and I'm pretty particular about the features that are on the drone that I want to use for range flying. And some of the safety situations and setup on there, as well as the durability factor. And I mean, for me, like if I was your friend, and it depends on what type of friend you are, right? Like if you're the friend of mine that like just is really rough on stuff and tends to have his quads a little dirtier, crash more, and things like that. If you're that guy, you should probably go with the Moz7 V2 over the LR7. Now, the LR7 is a lighter, I would say it's a little more nimble in ways. It feels like a lighter in the air when you're flying it. But I mean, honestly, both of them feel very light because they're both running 7.5-inch prop. The bigger they are, the more they feel like an RC airplane, like a glider, for example. Like these are the gliders of FPV drones, so to speak. And again, like the bigger they are, like the 15-inch on the back wall back there, that one feels super floaty and massive, like a ferry, whereas these feel more just like an RC glider, very smooth and swoopy, make nice lines with them. So I think if you got either one of these, you would enjoy either one. But if you're on a budget, Moz7 V2 is going to be a little bit cheaper than this one currently. So this one's priced out. I'll put the price up on the screen for you so you can see the price of the LR7 currently and the Moz7 V2 currently. And you know, you can take all of this information with a grain of salt in this video, and you know, take some of my opinion because I've been flying them both, and I honestly love them both. If I had to pick one for myself, I would probably have to pick the Moz7 V2 because of the robustness of it and that 6-bolt top plate release. So if I need to get this off super quick, I'm not having to release 10 bolts off the top of my long range drone. Very important for me for just not having to spend 5 minutes pulling bolts off everything. You know what I mean? So if you got anything out of this video, please do click like and subscribe on the video. And if you want to become a Patreon, that'd be awesome, because all those guys are supporting the channel and helping me keep making videos for you and bringing this kind of niche content to you. The FPV world is pretty small, and I'm happy to be a part of it now for 11 years. But I will be here for you in the next one as well. So please do like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. And oh yeah, check out my links down below. Take care.